So this video is called Atlantis, Healing the Trauma, or Healing Atlantis, Water Trauma, whatever you want to call it. So this backdrop here shows Atlantis under the water, which is obviously when Atlantis had already fallen, okay? And it had fallen from grace. And, this is why I put this video in, because this is where our trauma lies. So this is all about the golden age of Atlantis, understanding and knowing what was going on back then. So let's just bring this into the circle. Golden age of Atlantis was when all of our encodements were basically online, and we were living in our highest state of consciousness. We were in 5D consciousness. Everything was great. Everything was lovely. It was very heart-based. It was very powerful heart-based technology that we lived in, because Atlantis was ideally masculine. It was a masculine energy, had technology. We've now, was very, very much part of Atlantis then, and we're now moving into the golden age of Aquarius, which is deemed basically Atlantis 2.0 2024 vibes. This is we're now moving into AI. So this is another version of this, okay? But we are now kind of done full circle from golden age of Atlantis, fell from grace, went through the dark ages, a lot of them, and now here we are again, rising, not plummeting, we're rising, we're coming back to that point, right? So as I say, golden age of Atlantis was a masculine energy. The Lemurian timeline, which came very much before Atlantis, is all about the divine feminine. And we'll kind of get to that, because what I want to bring to the circle here is the access to our full Lemurian self, meaning your full divine feminine encodements, is kind of blocked a little bit by Atlantis, because Atlantis came after. We got to deal with this right now, because this is essentially where we're coming back to in this timeline. Once we reclaim, soul retrieve those parts of us that are still traumatized by the downfall Atlantis, okay? Once we soul retrieve those, then Lemuria, land of the first time, Zep Tepi, will open up for us. But for the purpose of the video, I just want to bring our focus onto the Atlantean timeline. So let's bring it into the circle. That Atlantis, when it was on its highest expression, as it were, it was 5D consciousness. We all had our encodements, gifts, and abilities online. We bartered, we traded. Nobody worked with money. There was no lack. There was no competition. It was all love vibes. The twin flames, they had a very, very powerful purpose there. They were kind of like what I call the frontliners or the outliners. They were the ones that held the highest stream of consciousness, the 5D consciousness. So the atmosphere of Atlantis could be upheld to 5D. And then, of course, as a result of that, so could all the people be in their 5D consciousness. So it was a network of powerful energy and frequency. It was a network of all of us star beings just working together, being together. And that's kind of how harmonious it once was. But as we know, it fell from grace because there was an overreach to access more power, more wisdom. And somebody opened the dark portal, okay? Who left the back door open? You know what I mean? Barry, you had one job. But Barry and maybe a couple of his friends thought that they would basically reach for some more expansive knowledge, just go to that next level, and they kind of like opened a door and they let all the dark forces in. And then of course it became like a cancer, and the energy of those dark forces started to look like us, move around like us. That's how they penetrated the golden council of light, as it were, because nobody detected them because they looked like us. And that is kind of like, in a very short story, how the downfall of Atlantis came. Now, this is very linked, very, very powerfully linked to the tablets of light teachings that I share with Thoth, because Thoth obviously was a high priest of Atlantis, okay, as was Anubis, as was Serapis Bey. And, this is kind of like where it kind of like slowly shifts over into Egypt, but we can talk about that on another video. But it's all part of the same whole, right? So we were up there and then we fell from grace, okay? And the way we fell from grace is because the whole of Atlantis needed to be flooded to close this timeline down. And that's what happened. But the problem is where we are right now, as we are becoming like back in, or we're coming back into that Atlantean timeline 2.0 2024 vibes and beyond, because we are back in the golden age. Now, this is why it's bringing up so much trauma, because we've done full circle. So we can't move forward until we have addressed the soul parts that need to be retrieved from when the downfall of Atlantis happened. Now, I've spoken to many people that have got this kind of like memory of a big wave coming over. Some people remember more than most. Some people just have an aversion to water in this life and they don't know why. These are all sort of like streams of shadow consciousness, which shows you that there are soul parts missing. Now, stay with me here. So in Atlantis, let's go back to when we were all there and we were all doing very, very well, because Atlantis was very masculine. Atlantis was the masculine energy. Lemuria was the divine feminine energy. Now, Lemuria is kind of blocked by Atlantis. We'll get to Lemuria on another video. But right now, let's talk about Atlantis. It was all about technology. We're now moving into the golden age now, and we're all working with AI. So we're kind of revisiting it all, right? So, but back then we all knew how to work with our encodements. We were all up there. We were all fully evolved, right? So now, like that soul part that is missing, that is floating in these waters that you maybe have not called home yet, they are the ones that hold a big portion of your superpowers and your gifts and abilities of when you were killing the game living in Atlantis, right? So it's so important that we go back and we visit this time, we visit this place, and we just get our house in order, right? So we can move forward and we can bring through the highest timeline, the highest expression of the golden age of Atlantis in this now timeline in the version that we know. Ancient wisdom for modern day living, right? So now you understand the purpose and the importance of soul retrieval, water trauma, all of the above. Now, I want to just share with you like my experience with water trauma that I only understood the other day. Now, I've always had a big aversion to cold water. I am not scared of water. I love water. But to get into a swimming pool or go into the sea, I've always got 5 million wetsuits on. It's a thing, right? And I only just realized the other day, which is where this video comes from, which is like, oh my goodness, I have water trauma Atlantis, which I've since soul retrieved, because I only cleared that because I went on a priestess pilgrimage in Avalon last year. And part of it was to go and do sacred bathing naked and get into these really, really cold water pools, which weren't just cold, they were Baltic. They were beyond Baltic. And I remember thinking, I don't have a problem with basically, kind of like showing up, being in all my authenticity, meaning naked. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with the sacredness of all of this, but I really don't want to get into this cold water. Anyway, I was like doing my Wim Hof breathing. I was like, oh my God, you can do this. Anyway, I slipped off the step and I kind of fell in and dunked right under. How funny is that, spirit? Thank you. And I went under and I remember my breath being taken away so much. And I was like, oh, and I've never, ever felt cold water like that in my life. And then came out the waters and, went through with the whole sacred ritual of it and then didn't think much about it until I came back home and I started to get into a swimming pool, swim in the sea, and I didn't do it with a wetsuit. I didn't even think. I didn't tentatively step into a swimming pool with my arms up here, go breathing. I just dived in. So I cleared something to do with the trauma of very, very cold water in my being, which was a soul retrieval. So that's how it turned out for me. But I do know that there's parts of you out there still vibrating in the trauma of maybe it's loss of others, maybe you're a twin flame, and because you got manipulated, because that's what's happened. They came in and the dark forces and they kind of thought, right, how do we take out the whole of Atlantis? What's the quickest way? No need to go around and switching off all the light switches. Just go to the main switchboard and shut it down. And that's what they did. They went to the twin flames and they shut them down, manipulated them, experimented on them, whatever. But what happened was the downfall of Atlantis happened really, really quick. So they penetrated it. And then, of course, that's when the waters came, because they were like, the Golden Council of Light was like, we need to shut this down quickly. So that's where the water came from. So either way, do you understand what I'm saying? There are so many different versions of trauma that you could have experienced. I know as a twin flame that I was one of those that was manipulated. The guilt and the rescuing of others in this life, where I was just constantly trying to repay a debt to humanity that was never going to be paid, because that was about my soul trauma and Atlantis still vibrating, thinking that it was all my fault. So of course, Atlantis is a very, very powerful portal to be revisiting right now for very, very good reason. So the importance as well on a much bigger scale, right? Because water is an element, right? So, of course, I talk a lot about Sekhmet, and I talk a lot about Hathor. And if you want to equate anything into a teaching perspective or of how this all works, balance, I always work with Sekhmet and Hathor. Sekhmet comes with the fire. She's the fire element of destruction, of just breaking things down, transmuting. alchemizing. Do you know what I mean? Activating, igniting, whatever you want to call it. But then once you've worked and harnessed your fires, your inner fires with Sekhmet, you then walk through and you kind of gently fall into Hathor, which is all about water, because Hathor is all about the heart. And she's very connected to the color blue. But she's very, very divine feminine, right? Very divine feminine. She's like the heart codes, the creation codes, the womb aspect, you know, so you have Sekhmet fire, Hathor womb. So that's the balance. We've got to go for the fire and we've got to go for the water. But if you can't connect with the water in the way that you're supposed to, then of course now you can understand why your progress may have be stammering here. Now, are you a teacher? Are you a way shower? What have you agreed to bring through in this lifetime? And you're very frustrated that you can't step in or step out. It's just a bit, sticky. This is a good reason why, because you've got a soul part in Atlantis. So now water is not only the element of emotions and everything like that, it brings change. Water brings change. But if you have an aversion or a shadow against water for whatever reason, then you're not in flow. Like Marie had to get into the water and it wasn't in flow. It wasn't aligned, because every time I got into the water, I was just like, oh God, oh, I have to hold my breath to dive in here. That's not flow. Now I just walk, I dive in. It's amazing. It's fluid, right? So water brings change. So if we can't relate to water in that very, very powerful healing manner, and connect with, because we are made up of water, we don't have that connection. We just have it connected to trauma, loss, it's flipping cold, whatever it might be, then there's no flow. So can you understand the importance of this? Do you know what I mean? Of understanding where water is maybe not so present in your life. Maybe it's very simple that you just don't drink enough of it or whatever. Water is life, right? Water is rebirth. And if we can't rebirth, if we can't get past that stage, then we can't move forward into resurrection. So we're all very good at dying, aren't we? Because we're constantly in the dark night of the soul. But well, not now so much, we're coming out of it, but we're very good at dying, but we have to be able to effortlessly and fluidly move into the amniotic fluids of the womb, of the water, not be traumatized or scared by this backdrop behind me. Know that we can breathe underwater. Know that the darkness is very comforting, because that's where all good things come from, and so on and so on. Here we are working with the water. Then we can become, then we can be reborn, then we can resurrect, because that is where we're working to now. Rebirth and resurrection. Resurrection is like, it's got to be now, because you are needed. You are so, so needed now to bring those encodements that you had in Atlantis. Like my work, as you know, to do with the Egypt tours and with Heka, it's all about helping you understand who you are, what you've come with. You are not your pain. You are not your trauma. Let's stop working on the trauma ongoing to try and find the answers. Let's just recognize, acknowledge, and go, oh, hey, I do have a soul part in Atlantis. Bring it on, unlock it. Let's talk about now more focus on the good stuff, right? Because that is your point of focus. If we keep deep diving into the trauma of where it went wrong, and yeah, we get good healing from that and all the rest of it, we still in the cycle of focusing on what we don't want. We will always create more and more and more healing perceived, when actually we're not really broken. We just need to be moving through Osiris right now, which is the reclamation and the calling home of your soul parts, so you can be whole and remembered, right? That is what this is all about. It's no different of you running out the house and going, shit, I forgot my lipstick. Let me just run back in the house and get my lipstick. Or you go into a crystal workshop. Oh, bugger, I left my crystal at home. Let me just go and grab that. And now you got everything you need. This is what I'm talking about. But I'm not talking about deep diving, constantly being underwater, looking under the rocks for all the stuff in the dark. Get what you need. Remember, resurrect. Let's do this now. Let's do this, So now if we clear Atlantis, which is divine masculine, we naturally can expand fully into Lemuria. Lemuria is the land of the first time. It came way before Atlantis. In fact, they say that our first incarnation was that of a woman. Everybody incarnated as a female first of all, okay? And that was how it rolled, because the Pleiadian star mothers encoded us with the divine feminine frequencies. I'm going to go off on a rabbit hole here, but like this is what happens. It's like the Pleiadians are the seven sisters. The seven sisters are the seven Hathors. The Hathors is obviously Hathor, and it's all to do with the creation codes and womb wisdom, and we all have it. Do you know what I mean? So we're going right back to the beginning here. So how can we relate to this as being deeply in the womb and very comforting, and just this is a magical place I want to be, versus I don't want to be here. This is not cool for me. And we've kind of got this stagnancy and stuckness, right? Because the reason I'm really bringing it in now is because we need you. We need you in Egypt. We need you to bring those beautiful divine encodements, knowing who you are fully in all your light. Come and join me in Egypt. We have Egypt on May the 9th to the 19th. There is a very powerful group of starseeds that have already stepped forward. And I'm calling you to come and join us now, because it is about really coming together, connecting and rebuilding that essence of Atlantis. But we have to be doing it when we are fully in our light, right? We're not going to be soul searching forever, are we? Because our soul is whole, always was. So this is why I'm putting a call out to action now. Let's get these soul parts remembered. Let's allow the opening of you now knowing who you really are. Don't you want that? Even if you are a teacher and you've been doing this for a long time, you know what I mean? There is a part of you here. There was a part of me here. I've been doing this gig for a long time, but you know what? I only just realized how much I'd left here in Atlantis and how much it was a real help for me to step in now. It was like the last tick on the box. This is very important that I'm speaking of. So how can we clear this? How can we get stuck into this? Well, I have some answers to that. So I have decided to actually release. I don't usually do one-on-ones, but this is a new thing because I've realized for this reason, this is what's needed. So the Heka codes, as you know, is all about remembering. It's all about bringing all your soul parts together so you can have a very, very clear vision and sight of what you've come here with, so you can actually understand that, know that, and then manifest, right? Exactly what you want. So I've decided to put that into a card reading. Okay, it's a card reading, which is a channeled reading, which unlocks all of the blockages, and we gain deeper understanding through that. So I will channel through from what the cards say. I'll just bring my own channel through anyway, and then we will arrive at a place where we need to take you somewhere. Maybe it is to Atlantis. Maybe it is to Egypt. Maybe it's somewhere with the Native American Indians or even the Vikings. I don't know, but like we will be sent to a place which is deeply connected via this, or actually here. Either way, it matters not. Like Atlantis has sent me to some crazy places, trust me, because it's all correlated somewhere. It's all attached. So now let's start here though. Let's go back to Atlantis. Let's figure this out. Let's bring your soul parts in. Let's bring that in so you can understand what your Heka is, what your magic and medicine is. And then let's go to Egypt. Let's get this job done. Do you want to be walking fully in your power now? Are you ready to resurrect? That's the big question, because now is the time to resurrect. So if you wish to be part of this new offering, and the sessions are about an hour, probably an hour and a half. They're supposed to be an hour, but they never are with me. So an hour and a half, come and join me. Let's start to unpack this. Let's call this soul part home, soul retrieve, very, very Isis energy, bringing in Isis into the space now, retrieving that soul part of you, and then watch everything just switch on. And then it is time, my friends, to get to Egypt. You have a mission. And I know a lot of you have a mission with me. So let's get this done and let's start walking in oneness and then start to live this new age golden Atlantis. I know I'm ready. So if you are wanting to know more about it, email me, pop a message in the comments, whatever you want to do. This isn't an advertised service yet, so you're getting it hot off the press. So get in touch. Let's get this work done, and then let's walk in oneness. So yeah, that's it, and that's all. Thank you for watching. So much peace, so much love to you, and yeah, I'll see you very, very soon.